and welcome to another episode of the HCP podcast. Today we are joined by the fantastic Dr. Rohan Khandelwal, who's based in India. He's a breast cancer surgeon, member of surgical faculty. He has a very large YouTube channel, over 200,000 subscribers, as well as multiple large profiles on Instagram too, sharing both his kind of fitness side of things, medical education, and also family life. So really excited to have Rohan on today, and really excited to get his take on how he balances fitness, health, nutrition, work, family life, and everything else he has going on. So let's get to it. Rohan, welcome to the HCP podcast. How are you today?
Thank you very much, Tom. Thank you for having me over on this podcast. I'm doing good. What about you?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Yeah, I'm just back from one of my training runs. So my legs are pretty worse for wear right now. It was like a 2.5 hour plus
Oh, nice.
sort of steady state type run. So yeah, the legs are feeling it after a fairly tough week of training at this point. So yeah, I feel like I'm ready for some fuel and a nap probably afterwards. Have you been doing much training this week, or you want a rest after?
Yeah. So I'm actually building up. My next Ironman is in less than 70 days now. So now
Okay.
the training is building up. Today I did a sort of a long run, but which was 12 kilometers. But then I
Nice.
had a couple of surgeries as well. So I had to go to the hospital, and I'm just resting up now. And tomorrow I have a 2-hour ride.
Okay, lovely stuff already. Okay, which Ironman is it you're doing in 70 days?
It's in India. It's in Goa.
Okay.
So this is going to be my second 70.3.
Nice. Yeah, 70.3 I think is a good distance. Obviously, like it's a big challenge, but it's also I think a more maybe slightly more enjoyable distance than the full Ironman for some people anyway. I don't know. I enjoyed the full distance, but it definitely had its moments where it was a bit of a slog, a long slog.
Yeah.
So I think the 70.3 is the sweet spot of enjoyment but challenge at the same time. Before we dive too deep into the fitness stuff, just for everyone listening, I think it'd be great if you could just do like a brief intro of kind of your, I suppose the medical side of you, but also the fitness side of you as well would be great for people to hear.
Sure. So I'm a breast cancer surgeon. I also teach doctors all over the country, and I am into endurance training now. I used to play cricket for a very long period of time, but post 40, sometimes, when you get out early in cricket, I used to open the batting, then
Right.
you don't get enough exercise.
Yeah.
So that's when I moved to triathlons. I'd been doing some swimming for many years, but running and cycling were both new to me, which I started only next year. I'm very sorry, which I started last year. And ever since that, I think so it's been a game changer, and I really enjoy doing something new every day
Mhm.
and trying to balance it out with my work as well.
Nice. Yeah, it definitely gives you more variety, but I think also particularly with triathlon, there's so many intricacies and skills to learn along the way of just transitions alone and bike kit and your like bike position, for example, the
Yeah.
swimming, it all, well, they're also ultimately they're all swimming, cycling, running are all individual sports, and you've got to get really good at all three of them to kind of get good at, yeah, the overall try. So yeah, it definitely keeps you busy. And I suppose for you, what does your typical, I suppose, work week look like as well in your role?
So I work from Mondays till Saturdays,
Okay.
but fortunately my branch is such where there are no surgical emergencies. So it's all planned surgeries. Um, I start my surgeries by around 8:30 in the morning, and I finish my clinical work and I'm back home by 3:30. I don't do evening clinics,
Mhm.
so that's it for my clinical work. Then I focus my time on my family, the teaching bit which I do, and the exercise, the fitness part.
Yeah, I guess it gives you a more consistent structure, I suppose, then weekly to kind of plan life around
Yeah,
rather than doing on calls and lates and the more frequent changing rotas that a lot of medics can experience in their roles.
right. Yeah, and that becomes challenging once you have those kind of things in your schedule. Then exercise and family life takes a back foot, and it becomes quite challenging as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned the surgical education side of things. Is that both in person or is it more with your like your YouTube channel that you have as well?
Yeah, so for a very long period of time, I was taking physical classes where I used to go and then teach.
Yeah.
But as my practice kept on increasing, that became more challenging. So
Hmm.
then we moved to a more app-based model and a more social media-based model, which is more scalable and we can reach out to more people. And I don't, it doesn't interrupt my clinical practice also.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, cool. Brilliant. All right. So what we'll do before we get more into fitness and how you manage it and your tips for surviving it all, I'd like to take us through the quick fire segment, which we'll see how quick fire it is. That's the common thing in this, but we'll go for it and see how
I'll
we
try
go.
to do my best.
So what's your must-have work snack if you have one?
So my work snack is actually a curd-based drink. It's buttermilk,
Okay.
and I have a protein bar along with it.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. Sounds good. What sort of flavor protein bar do you have normally?
So I am more of a chocolate person, and
Yeah.
I like protein bars which have some chocolate in it.
Yeah. Can't go wrong. Yeah. It's a solid choice.
Yeah.
That's the reason why it's so popular. What about, the second question is, what's your coffee order if you drink coffee?
So I'm not a coffee person at all.
Yeah.
Have not tasted. I would have hardly tasted, say, coffee once or twice in my life. I'm more of a tea person. Yeah, the only coffee which I've tasted is in tiramisu.
Yeah. Okay. That's, as people who listen know, tiramisu is my favorite. So we can talk about that. So for tea, would you have that at work typically as sort of like a break kind of tea? And is it a regular standard tea you have, or is it something a bit more
Yeah,
exotic?
so it's a milk-based tea, and I have one in the morning when I get up, and I have one during my work time. But ever since I've started training, I've restricted my caffeine intake post 12 noon because I've seen that if I have caffeine too late in the day, it affects my sleep quality.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I would just have those 2 cups of tea before noon.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. Sounds good. I suppose even with it being tea in particular as well, actually, your caffeine intake is probably 100 to 150 kind of milligrams. I would
Yeah.
guess,
Yeah.
if that, depending on the strength of the tea. So yeah, fairly minimal, which is good. Okay, with do you track your steps every day, or do you kind of goal your steps?
So when I started off, I used to, but not anymore. I mean, I don't have a target on the steps anymore because I'm working with a coach who gives me workouts. I think so it's more important to just do the workouts. And if you're doing that, you're getting enough exercise into the system. On days when I'm not exercising, which has been few in the last year or so,
Yeah.
those are days when I would probably track my steps or track the calories, what I'm burning
Mhm.
during.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. Yeah. I think I think pretty good advice for most people who are exercising pretty regularly anyway. Is kind of thought the thing you're going to get the most out of is doing the physical exercise or the training, and steps are great for those. Yeah, the rest days or days where you're sick or unwell or whatever it might be. Nothing wrong with steps; they're great to get in. But yeah, the priority if you are doing lots of training, particularly endurance focused training, is you're getting a lot of steps in when you go running for an hour and a half.
True.
Okay, what's your go-to workout song or playlist if you have one?
So it's a mixed playlist and it's developed over the years.
Mhm.
And I'm very choosy about adding or deleting songs from that.
Oh,
But it's a mixture of Hindi and English songs.
yeah,
Yeah. So
nice.
for the audience, I mean, the English ones are mainly, Bryan Adams is my favorite.
Okay,
So
yeah,
a lot of Bryan Adams songs are there.
nice. Yeah, nothing wrong with Brian Adams. And so, are you manually curate your playlist rather than being like an
Yes.
automatics playlist? Okay,
No,
that's that.
I manually curated and I have one playlist for my workout and one playlist for my operating room.
Oh, okay. How do they differ? Is it Brian Adams in the operating room as well, or is it something more
Yeah, I mean,
Zen?
most of the songs I would say are similar, but you have more upbeat and tempo songs when you want to run or when you want to work out.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
fair, nice. Okay, yeah, sounds good. Yeah, I've given up manually curating playlists at this point. I tend to just, because I have YouTube Premium, I'll just play the
Yeah.
workout super mix, and I just do that unless I'm in a particular mood where I want to listen to a certain genre, and then I'll do the radio of that
Right.
genre or something. But yeah, I've long given up because I found my like such a mix of things I'd listen to, and then I have like the liked section, but yeah, it's a long story, and I've just given up and used the automatic playlist instead now. Okay, so is there something you've bought in the past year that's been a real game changer for you? And this could be a
Well, I
physical
think
thing, it
so.
could be a service, it could be anything.
Yeah, look, the first game changer was the Apple Watch, which I purchased two and a
Mhm.
half years back. And that was actually gifted to me by my parents on my birthday, on my 40th birthday. So that was a game changer because I could track the steps, I could track the calories, and that gave you constant motivation to, do better.
Okay.
And in the last 1 year, I've moved to Garmin, especially when it comes to my endurance training.
Yeah.
And the data which you get out of your Garmin as compared to an Apple Watch is again much more accurate in terms of training. So I'll wear my Apple Watch to the hospital,
Mhm.
but for the rest of the day, I'm wearing my Garmin.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. I'm a big Garmin fan. I too, I'm currently wearing it now. It's, there we go. Garmin's Unite. Yeah. I think pretty much most people I speak to who are doing some form of consistent running or triathlon type training, Garmin tends to be the main choice they go for. Just as you say, because the reporting and accuracy tends to be much better, and just the features are more designed for it. For me, it's just and we're not sponsored by Garmin, but
Yeah,
if Garmin's listening, if you want to sponsor, absolutely,
yeah,
let's
we don't
do it.
mind.
I have to say that customer service is brilliant. This is a real tangent, but my last Garmin was out of warranty. It broke and it can be repaired. Message the Garmin customer support. They were like, well, we can offer you an upgraded model for £150. I was like, that's brilliant. But the model that they would have normally given me was out of stock. So they said, oh, actually, we can offer you just the newest range up instead. And so I kind of went from a Garmin Phoenix like 6 to the 8 Pro Solar, like the absolute top of the range type thing for
Wow.
£150. I was like, that's good customer service. So that's a Garmin, you got a customer for life. I did actually send the customer service agent a Christmas card as a thank you for
That's
doing that.
nice.
I don't know if he ever got it, but I sent it to their address to him. So we'll see if he got it. Yeah, Garmin's are great. Next question. What is your favorite dessert?
Well, that's a difficult one, but again, it has to be something chocolate based. So, I mean, I would say a chocolate based cake.
Yeah, chocolate cake. Yeah, yeah, a good chocolate cake.
Yeah, but it's difficult. I mean, there's so many Indian desserts also which I like, but I would go for chocolate any day.
Okay, chocolate still wins. All right. And the last one, which is a big topic, is what's your maybe biggest frustration with sort of the fitness or health space at the moment?
Well, I mean, in terms of endurance training, I'm pretty new to it, so I haven't faced any frustration as yet, barring an injury which I suffered during training,
Mhm.
which was the most frustrating time for me. So I think so. The most frustrating bit for an endurance athlete is when they suffer an injury and that time period, how they cope with it is the
Mhm.
most frustrating bit. And that's when they need the most support from their friends and family and their training group.
Yes. Yeah. Injury can be a real kind of mental setback, and particularly if you're someone who's training a lot of the time, and that's kind of the normal for you to train really often, and then to be injured and suddenly actually a big part of your weekday and life it suddenly disappears. It can be, yeah, can definitely be mentally tough to get through. So yeah, having a team around you, some family around you, etc., can all be definitely helpful for that. So, okay, well, that concludes the quickfire segment. I think that's probably the fastest quickfire we've had so far. So, congratulations on having the
Thank you.
quickfire segment title. Well deserved. So, I went through the quickfire. I think what would be cool to jump into is actually just how you manage both work, training for Ironmans, and family life too, and kind of what your maybe top tips are for kind of balancing that, I suppose. But just to kind of help set the background, has kind of looking after your health and sport, I suppose, always been really important to you from a young age, or it's something that you picked up more as an adult?
Yeah, so I mean, a good question. So I was born and brought up in a family where everyone was taking care of their health.
Mhm.
My grandfather, till the age of 93, used to walk 3 to 5 kilometers every day,
Okay.
right? My father is now 73. He swims every day, 500 meters. So, when you see your parents, your grandparents exercising regularly, you automatically try to inculcate that in your lifestyle as well. So that was one aspect of it. And the other thing is because I interact with a lot of doctors, um, a lot of times I've seen that we don't practice what we preach. We'll be
Mhm.
the first ones to tell patients to exercise, to lose weight, but we don't practice it ourselves. And
Yeah.
that's what I decided very early in my medical career, that I don't want to be like that.
Hmm.
So, whatever time I could get, whether it was swimming, playing cricket, I was keeping myself active. But post 40 is when I got the real wake up call. I thought I was pretty active and pretty healthy, but some of my blood parameters were not in range. Now, whether it is more genetic or got to do some bit with my lifestyle as well, that was the real wake up call. And that's what pushed me into pursuing endurance sports and weight training.
Yeah.
Prior to this, I wasn't lifting weights.
Hmm.
I was just doing swimming and playing cricket.
Okay. Yeah. So it sounds like, ultimately from a youngish age, it's always been somewhat ingrained to be doing fitness of some kind. But then in the last 5, 10 years, it's suddenly become more of I need to maybe take this more seriously, or kind of be a bit more data driven about what and how I'm doing beyond just opening batting in cricket or
Yeah.
just the odd bit of exercise. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the thing. I think your top level cricketers, I'm sure, are pretty fit, but I think that's the thing. Recreational cricket, depending on how you play and what are the batting and everything else, can mean that actually it's maybe not that physical necessarily.
It's become more of a social game here
Yeah.
where you get
Yeah.
together, you chit chat, you have more junk while you're on the ground,
Yes.
and then you actually exercise.
Yeah, I used to play when I was younger, and my dad has always played cricket. I think his dream would be that I would have played for Yorkshire and England. That was he he wanted me to be born specifically in Yorkshire, because at the time you could only play for Yorkshire if you were born there as a county. So the commitment was there to even have me born there at that point. But unfortunately, I was never that good at cricket, and yeah, rugby was much more my sport. But I'd always get roped into playing in the GP Consultants cricket match that they have
Nice.
in Derbyshire. And my main highlight was the cream tea at lunch, because it was just it's like cakes and desserts and everything. And I was like, this is great. Like 15-year-old me was just loving having cake and for midway through a match, which was not very physical, but I was expected I would be on like one boundary. And then if the ball got hit to the opposing boundary, most of them would just look at me and be like, Tom, go get it. And I'd just
Right.
run across the wicket, all the other side of the pitch to get the ball, sort of thing. I was doing the physical work for them.
Yeah, so I was the fastest runner in my cricket team. So I was also, posted on the boundary just to make sure that I can run around and save the odd boundary. And
Yeah.
that was my only physical exercise if I used to get out early while playing the match.
Yeah, got it. And going through, I suppose, medical school and I suppose post-medical school training, how did you find that impacted your exercise sort of routine?
So, look, this is what I tell a lot of students, they, when they look at me, they're 20 years junior to me. So, work life balance in every phase of life means something very different.
Yeah.
Y- Some of them want to emulate what I'm doing in my mid 40s, but I
Mhm.
tell them, look, this is not what I was doing when I was your age, when I was training.
Yeah.
So in medical school, for me, exercise meant playing cricket 2 to 3 times a week and swimming during the summers because at that time we didn't have an all-weather pool. I didn't have access to an all-weather pool. So swimming for, again, thrice a week. That was exercise for me. Again, during residency was the bit when the exercise really reduced because residency was very hectic. You had night shifts, you had 36-hour shifts there. So it just boiled down to say once a week cricket and maybe twice a week of swimming. Post that, things are in your control. So again, after that, it was playing some sport or the other, at least 2 to 3 times a week was the exercise which I was getting in. But I really became serious about exercise, I would say, just within the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And really serious in the last year.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. You've got to really start taking it seriously when you sign up for an Ironman. It's hard to kind of just you can't quite blag your way through doing it. You actually have to put in the work to make an enjoyable day. I think it's pretty important. Yeah, so I think something you said there really interesting is that different phases of life, and people see you now and think, oh yeah, that's what I should be trying to do, as you say. But the reality is it needs to be tailored to their week and their reality at that point in time, and absolutely try and find what that best option is. And there's lots of factors that come into that, whether it's access to facilities or knowing what you should or shouldn't be doing. Whole loads of things. It's not as easy as just turning up and doing it. But I think 100% you've got to try and tailor it to the reality that you're in at that point in time, because otherwise you can set yourself up to being frustrated and disappointed, because it's like, oh, I want to train for an Ironman, but I'm also doing 5 nights in a row, and that's happening really frequently for me. So actually getting any serious training in is pretty tough, and that in itself can be disheartening. So thinking, okay, what's realistic for me at this point in time? Do I have to do it now? Or could I wait a year's time or 6 months' time when this rota might change to something else maybe? Yeah, all things to consider. I suppose, what would be your tips, particularly for people who are in residency, in terms of staying fit and healthy?
Well, for one, I would tell them to eat more healthy. At least that is something which is in their control, and avoid sugar-rich snacks. Avoid putting on weight during those periods. During residency is when your step count becomes really important. So even if you can hit a particular step count every day, and during residency, one thing which I used to make sure was I never used to use the lift. Right. So my floor count on an average day would be around 20 odd floors climbed, which was exercise for me. And I used to literally run up stairs. So that is something which I would encourage everyone to do rather than use a lift. Use the stairs. That gives you good enough, physical exercise during the day. And of course, when you find time, focus on your physical and mental health as well. Even mental health during residency is equally important.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I think what you're describing there as well is just trying to focus on the fundamentals of just basic physical activity. And it goes back to your schedule, and life might be pretty hectic at that point in residency. And it's just thinking of what are the basics I can do that's going to keep me moving, give me some form of kind of health outcome from doing that. There was a study recently I shared, something around 77,000 steps per day gets you a lot of the benefits of sort of a higher step count. Anything beyond that is brilliant as well. With, floors climbed, etc. as well, fantastic. But even just trying to hit that sort of 7,000 mark, which I think a lot of people will do if they're walking around a hospital a fair bit, it's
Sure.
can help quite a lot. And then the mental health side of things, I suppose, is huge. I suppose when you were going through residency, was there much support on that side of things, or was it very much just down to you as an individual to be looking after
No.
yourself?
Not much support. I mean, residency can be very harsh in India sometimes, especially surgical residency. And not only in India. I mean, I have seen surgical residency in US as well, and it's pretty harsh there as well. But yes, in US and UK, you have a proper system around you, and you have support from other people as well. In India, you're mostly down to yourself, your family, and your friends to
Mm.
help you out.
Yeah. Yeah. Tough. Definitely tough. Okay. And I suppose, so we've chatted a bit about, I suppose, people going through residency. I suppose, what about for doctors who are now at your sort of senior level seniority, not necessarily in your specialty, they may well be in completely different specialties, but I suppose, what's your tips for them who are maybe trying to get serious about their health now at 40 or beyond?
Yeah, well, look, India functions very differently from what NHS does, right? So you have a fixed working hours, fixed rota, and I think so work-life balance is prioritized there as well. Weekends are mostly off. I have a few friends there, so I know weekends are mostly off for them. India, things are very different. If you're in the government setup, you're still working from Monday till Friday. Saturday is half day. So you have 1.5 days there. But every day you get free by around 4. So you still have the entire evening to you, and it's up to you what you want to do with your life. You want to exercise, you have other hobbies, you can pursue them. I think so. Some doctors are just very lazy, and post that 4 p.m., they just exhaust their time on social media or reels or doing useless stuff rather than exercising. Private practice is very different. Private practice is not governed by any time period. So I know doctors way into their 40s, 50s, and even 60s who are working from morning 8 till evening 8.
Right.
That I don't feel is healthy. And at one point of time, you need to take a call that, yes, I need to probably take a financial hit
Mm.
and I need to prioritize my health. That um, awareness is what is lacking in a lot of doctors, which is why we are seeing a lot of health issues in young doctors, lot of cardiac deaths in young Indian doctors.
Hmm.
So I feel that post 40, everyone should take out at least 30 to 45 minutes every day for their health.
Yeah. 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 I think it's really interesting to see. I think certainly there's such a, it sounds like in India in particular, that more typical structure of sort of finishing around 3 or so gives you that room in the day potentially to then use it for training or whatever else, which is great. And I think it's similar in the UK, in that there's, depending on role. So I think there's certainly some specialties where it's much more fixed and is more daylight hours. There's no on calls, no weekends, etc. But yeah, I have some clients who are emergency medicine consultants or A&E consultants, and then the nature of the job means that then they are doing still on calls or 12-hour shifts or shifts that are meant to be finishing at 7 but don't finish till 11, all that sort of stuff. And I think often the advice really is still similar that I would give to either themselves or to people who are finishing at 3 o'clock, and it's ultimately trying to tailor your regime to your reality, your week, what you've got going on, and what's realistic, I think, as well, and not getting often not setting your targets too high on the other end of the spectrum can be sometimes challenging. I find you may or may not agree with this, but I find a lot of doctors, a lot of healthcare professionals are perfectionists and have maybe quite an all or nothing mentality to things, which can be fantastic. We all want a doctor who is a perfectionist when they're doing surgery on us, but you can sometimes be your own worst enemies. And when it comes to setting, let's say, health goals of trying to go from 0 to 100 without maybe doing the steps in between and getting frustrated because you can't suddenly do 5 workouts a week when actually you've just had a string of nights or whatever, your children are sick and you've got to stay home and look after them or whatever it might be. I think it's progressively kind of building up, tailoring your regime to your reality, I think is important to do. But really interesting to see kind of your tips and what you find is helpful. So I suppose when it comes to staying consistent and kind of motivated, particularly with things like an Ironman, that requires a lot of consistency and motivation to keep going week after week, particularly when it gets into the harder depths of training. What helps you stay consistent? Like, what keeps you going through that and not just thinking, actually, I'll just sack this off for today or for this week?
Yeah, well, let me just cover aspect which you just touched upon about doctors and
Yeah, go for
perfectionists.
it.
So I think so. I mean, that's similar to the perfect draft syndrome, when you want to write a publication. And that is a problem which doctors have. And when it comes to training, I feel what is important is to close the loop. Even if the loop doesn't look like a perfect circle, you can always make it look like a perfect circle over a due course of time. But initially, it's important to at least close the circle or close the loop, which is what a lot of doctors are not understanding. They don't want to embark on the journey until and unless it's going to become a perfect circle.
Yeah.
Right. So that is the mindset which needs to change. Coming to the part about being consistent, well, I feel that at least I'm the kind of person who doesn't need external motivation. So I'm more of a disciplined person.
Right.
And I believe in habit forming things. So yes, the first 30-35 days when my coach started giving me the workouts, the body was extremely sore. And as a doctor, the only thing which I discussed with him was that I want to gradually build it up. Because a lot of times what I've seen gym trainers or other trainers, to show off their knowledge, they give you such difficult workouts initially that you are sore for a week, 10 days, and that completely breaks your you know, motivation to go and do another workout.
Yeah.
So this was something which I discussed with my coach, and he was very helpful. He understood where I was coming from, and he gradually built it up. So in a month and around 35, 40 days into my training, I didn't want to miss any day of training. And in fact, I got a note from my coaches on the day of my first Ironman, where they said that they really appreciated the work ethics. That I was, despite my professional life, busy professional life, my teaching profession as well, I was able to do the workouts. And again, that's the important bit. I might not be the best in doing those workouts. I might not be having the best heart rate readings or the best power outputs, but at least I was doing them. And now it's become a habit. Now I feel odd if I'm not exercising during the day.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a couple things are really interesting that you said. I think one is on that last point of it, it's almost, I suppose, become a default to you to now make exercise a daily or every other day sort of thing. And it almost feels odd that you're not doing it, and not from, I think, from a negative or obsessive perspective, but more that it's just a normal habit for you that feels good and is good for you. So I think it's brilliant that that's there for you. And I think from a coaching side of things, yeah, something that you can sometimes see is coaches who sometimes, partially because of the way they maybe structure their financial model as a coach, can be that they are somewhat reliant on seeing quick results and moving on to short-term packages, quick results, that sort of thing. And so they put in quite brutal early on workouts, which can work better for clients who maybe are 18 to 25 and so can bounce back and recover more quickly from that sort of thing. But if you've got to go to work and stand in an operating theatre for 8 hours, and your whole body has DOMs and you're really sore and stiff and immobile, as you say, you're not going to feel good. It's going to be hard to even do another workout the next day. So I think, a gradual reintroduction is super important, and it's a good kind of green flag, red flag moment with a new coach in some ways. If someone's looking for one, is are they actually digging into your current level of exercise and kind of fitness ability, what you're used to, and are they going to gradually build that in? Or is the first workout you're getting an hour and a half long and super brutal? It can be a good moment to think, is this the right thing for me? Or maybe we should pare it back a little bit. So yeah, really good tip on the finding the right level to start with. Okay, and what about, you mentioned earlier, like injuries being a frustration and setback, and kind of family and that side of things being a big help. I suppose for you, going from exercising quite a lot to then maybe not exercising very much, did you kind of try and work around the injury, or was it sort of strict rest that you then went to whilst you were recovering?
So when you start training for something like an Ironman, it's the whole family which is invested into your training.
Yes.
So that was my initial conversation with the coach, and he said that, I want you to take 15 days, think about it, discuss with your wife that it will require time commitments. There would be compromises which need to be made. So first you decide whether you're ready for it or not as a family. And I got tremendous support. I am still getting tremendous support whenever I want to train. With regards to the injury, as a doctor, injuries, we are bad patients. Doctors make the worst patients, right? And the problem is that whenever we have an injury, we think we know more than the coach, because we're coming from the medical background.
Yeah.
So I suffered from an IT band friction injury. It started in the right leg and then moved to the left leg as well. And it got triggered on a winter day when I didn't warm up adequately and I didn't cool down adequately,
Right.
because I had to rush to the hospital to do surgery. So, when it happened, I thought it's going to go away, did bit of icing, then again started running. Again, it got aggravated. Um, did some bit of physio, did not give adequate rest, went for a race, and it was a 10 kilometer. I was doing very well till 7 kilometers. And then the last 3 kilometers, I just could not run because it was excruciating pain. So then finally, I spoke to a lot of my friends who were orthopedicians, physiotherapists, and my coach said that this is ID band friction syndrome. And trust me, I haven't read so much of lower limb anatomy in med school, the amount which I read when I suffered this. So then finally what we decided was, and this was 2.5 months before my first Ironman.
Mm-hmm.
So my coach said, no running for 1 month. We give it complete rest. We focus on swimming and we focus on cycling, but we are not going to go above a certain wattage, which puts more pressure on your legs. So it was high cadence cycling and swimming. So we took care of those two aspects of the Ironman. And then once the legs started feeling better, we went into a slow run walk kind of a routine.
Yeah.
and then we built it up for the Ironman. So I think so, as an athlete, if you train regularly, you will get injured. Please listen to your coach and take rest when they tell you to. Um, Focus on the other things, focus on strength during that time, and you can always build up on that aspect once you're fit.
Yeah. Yeah. I think really, really solid tips, and great to hear that you had like a progressive return to sport from injury, and not just we'll take a few days off and then just
Yeah.
push back at it and hope for the best. Because as you experienced, particularly things like IT bands and other body parts, things like knees shoulders can be things that just don't settle in a few days and need real time to recover and gradually rebuild back in. So yeah, good to hear a friend who runs a business called Plug-in Rehab, who's a exercise rehabilitation specialist. And I think one kind of key learning that I've sort of had from him is that, particularly with things like Achilles tendons, for example, I had a kind of a chronic Achilles kind of tendonitis, I suppose. And the key learning I had was that actually in the past, I'd always tried to go back too quickly to sport with that. And sort of I thought, a month and a bit's rehab is probably enough. And actually, he was more like, no, actually you need maybe 2-3 months of gradually building, because actually, I'm 100 kilos and fairly strong. And so putting a lot of force through that Achilles with every step, whether I'm sprinting or jogging, whatever it might be. And actually it needs a lot of steady build up of loading and stress over time to be able to then take that and not just keep going back to this chronic Achilles and calf injury. So yeah, I think particularly for rehab, it needs time. And then smartly working around it as you were doing, I think is the super important thing. Like, you don't have to suddenly go from, I've got an injury, so I stop everything, thinking, how else can I keep pursuing that goal, keeping fit and keeping ticking over? You can do a lot for running fitness on a bike and from swimming as well. Really,
No, I
really
mean,
good.
yeah, I got tremendous support from my coach and from other athletes who are doctors as well, who have done Ironmans. All of them, some of them had an ID band friction. So they said, just be patient. You will do your race. You need to trust the process. And I think so, having faith in those people is very important.
Yes. Yeah. And particularly, I can only imagine that you've got a pending deadline coming up, you have a race coming up, and that's stressful in itself, thinking, oh, actually, I can't even run train right now. And in 70 days or however close it was, in a month's time, I've got to go and run a half marathon. And it's can be quite stressful, thinking, oh, am I going to be ready on the day now? Does this ruin my race? And the reality is if you've already done a lot of the work before you've had the IT band issue, you're already probably fit enough or close to fit enough to be able to do a half marathon or whatever that distance you have coming up. And it's kind of trying to ground yourself, listen to your coach, listen to other experts and what they're telling you, and try not to get in your own head too much when it comes to that, and pushing through the pain is too bad. So yeah, I think definitely a good one. Something else you said is something I see a lot in my business, I suppose, working mainly with healthcare professionals, is they tend to be quite bad at being patients themselves. And I saw that in my own family. Absolutely. They are not good patients. Any sports injury, any kind of advice when it comes to health and fitness, typically not very good at listening to it as healthcare professionals. I guess it's just part of the challenge. But okay, so I think some really interesting things there on injury and kind of managing your, I suppose, mindset around it as well, which I think is important. So jumping from, I suppose, the fitness side of things, actually onto nutrition a little bit more as well, I think would be helpful for people to hear. So once you have an Ironman coming up, you need to fuel yourself for that. How do you stay on top of your nutrition alongside work and family life as well?
Yeah, so that's an interesting bit because I'm vegetarian.
Yeah.
I don't take eggs also. So there are very few protein sources available for us. So it's basically tofu, cottage cheese would be the main sources of protein. But I weigh 60 kgs. So
Okay.
for me to hit my protein targets, the amount of pulses or cottage cheese which I would need to consume is huge.
Yeah.
And I tried doing that for a few days, but it wasn't possible. So I ultimately had to move to protein supplements. And in India, there are so many protein brands. There are so many fitness influencers claiming all of them are good because they're getting sponsored through them. So ultimately, when I had to take it, I spoke to my dad, and he was taking a particular brand of plant protein, which was suiting his tummy. And I thought if it's suiting his tummy, it would be good for me as well. And he'd been taking it for the last 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
So I initially started with that, but then I moved to a combination of whey and plant protein. So I usually take the whey in the morning with my breakfast.
Yeah.
My breakfast has been standard for the last 8 months or 9 months, ever since I've started training. It's a seasonal fruit which goes into a blender with whey protein, flax seeds, chia seeds, a little bit of milk, ice, and that's my breakfast. I would probably have, some vegetarian dish, a very small serving of vegetarian dish along with it. This works well for me till lunch. My 1 p.m. snack before lunch, so I usually have lunch around 2:30. 12:31 is when I'm going to have my buttermilk and a protein bar, half a protein bar. But the protein bar is not every day. It's only on days when I have had a hectic day or a tough workout. Then my lunch is primarily going to be rice and pulses, a little bit of vegetables. I do my workouts in the evening. I have my second serving of plant protein in the evening, which would just be plant protein in a protein shaker. And then I have my meal in the night by around 7:30, which would again be cottage cheese, salad would be my meal. So
Yeah.
that's how I try to keep my protein intake sufficient. And one thing which I've realized is that earlier on, when I was not taking adequate protein, I used to get these vague aches and pains. Sometimes, just a stiff back after a long surgery. And it used to take many days for it to get better.
Yeah.
But ever since I've increased my protein intake, those vague aches and pains have gone away. The recovery has become much better.
Yeah. Yeah. And how many, are you doing a grams per kilogram kind of target that you're aiming for with protein?
Yeah, so first target was to at least hit 1 gram per kg,
Okay. Yeah.
right? And with food, that wasn't even possible as well.
Yeah. It's tough as a
So,
vegetarian.
yeah, so when I started first I started with 1 scoop a day, and that made me reach around 50, 55 every day. Then I moved to 2 scoops. Now I hover somewhere around 65 to 70 grams of protein a day, which I feel is fine. I mean, I don't want to go beyond that because it's working well for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's finding what works well for you and supports your goals ultimately and your recovery. The recommendations tend to vary greatly from being somewhere around anywhere from 1 gram to 2 grams, depending on goal. And certainly 2 grams is very much on the high end. But actually, most people will feel pretty good from getting somewhere around even 1 gram per kilo. And even the 1.2 gram per kilo, I think a lot of people feel a lot of benefit from reaching that. But often, not just vegetarians, but people who are omnivores, I find often when I first start working with people, sometimes their protein count might be half, might be 0.5 gram per kilo, and they struggle a lot with snacking, they struggle a lot with kind of food cravings. And we tend to find that actually getting somewhere close to having a gram per kilo of protein, their kind of food noise and snacking tends to decrease dramatically just from increasing their protein intake.
Yeah.
And as I say, I think the other topic you touched on there is kind of whey proteins and vegetarian and kind of vegan protein sources, particularly for vegetarians. Yeah, supplements can be really helpful in just hitting those targets. It is just much more difficult to achieve a 1 gram per kilo or above as a vegetarian. So my wife's vegetarian, so I know firsthand from helping her with meals that how tricky it can be. I think, I don't know about in India, but certainly in the UK, maybe culturally or historically, kind of protein and supplements don't have to have a bad name, but it's sort of something that some people have maybe historically seen as just being something that they didn't want to do almost, or kind of don't want to touch on. I think it's maybe shifting now a bit as people realize actually it's just another food source and another kind of a source to help them, I suppose. But is there any stigma at all in India around kind of protein supplementation?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of stigma. A lot of people think that it's going to ruin your kidneys. You're going to get kidney damage. And problem is also with how authentic the source is. A lot of sources have contamination, heavy metal contamination. So, which is why I tell everyone that please do your research before choosing a brand. see which one has been lab tested by independent sources. So there are a few influencers who have done independent lab testings of various protein brands, and they've released their results. So, do your research before
Yeah.
you deep dive into a protein brand, and you might need to choose two or three, seeing which suits your tummy. Also, you need to hydrate well. Another problem is people don't hydrate adequately.
Mhm. Definitely.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally agree. Particularly protein sources. You see it in the UK, they're relatively good quality on the whole, but you can find some that will be opaque, maybe with their protein sources that they have in it, where it might say their proprietary blend, for example, but and not tell you what the actual blend is, and can
Yeah.
be not necessarily what you're expecting. So there's definitely do your research when it comes to protein sources and any supplement. Ultimately, you should definitely do the research. Actually, look for evidence-based sources for that. Check for actual medical research that's been taking place on that supplement before listening to whoever on social media is telling you that you should buy that certain thing. Because, yeah, as we see, particularly with TikTok, there's lots of stuff on there that is completely useless for you that is sold very heavily from a supplement standpoint. Hydration is a big one of mine. How do you do anything as a senior surgeon in the operating room? Is there anything you do as a team, for example, to kind of try and make sure that everyone is hydrated or kind of ready, I suppose, from a physical performance standpoint?
So, I mean, mine is probably the OPD chamber where the water jar is changed most frequently, right? So, me and my team would finish at least 2 to 3 water jars in a day. So, it keeps on getting changed, refill. And also, I take that 1 p.m., that is almost 700 mils of
Mhm.
buttermilk,
Yeah.
which I'm taking. So, which is also good probiotic rich liquid, which I'm taking in. So I try to hit around 2.5 to 3 liters of
Mhm.
fluid intake minus the tea, which I feel is actually dehydrating you. So you have to
Yeah.
compensate more for that for the caffeine which you're taking in. You need to take more liquids as well.
Fluid. Yes, I often tell people to discount the coffees or teas that they have when they tell me how much fluid they have in a day, because yeah, otherwise people are like, oh, I had 4 coffees, and that's, I don't know, maybe a liter. And it's like, no, you've had a liter of coffee. That's not going to make you feel great. Let's try
Right.
and get some actual water in you instead. Okay, so I'll ask you a couple more questions, and then we'll wrap up. So I think one thing that's interesting to ask people is, what's maybe a fitness or nutrition belief that you used to hold that you've now changed your mind about?
Well, I was also strongly against using supplements. So,
Mhm.
when I started training, I told my wife, barring protein supplements, I'm not going to take other supplements. But then I did a lot of research on creatine, and I spoke to a lot of people regarding creatine. And that has also helped me quite a lot in the last 8 or 9 months. Again, as a vegetarian, the creatine stores are low in us. So when the creatine stores built up gradually, I could see that the recovery was happening much faster. Of course, I didn't take creatine for building muscle bulk. So I wasn't loading and I wasn't taking 5 grams a day. I was just taking to 3 grams a day. And I wasn't very rigid about it. So if I was traveling for a week, I didn't use to travel with my creatine.
Yeah.
So, but what I've realized that it just helps you in recovery, and it's something which is well researched. I've read a lot of articles about it, and it's safe to take again if you hydrate yourself adequately.
Yeah, creatine, highly, highly, highly researched supplement that's used pretty much by, I'd say, almost every single professional sports team out there. Lots of benefits from a physical standpoint, but also I think there's some research looking into more the mental benefits aspect and kind of short-term memory benefits potentially. And as you definitely, as you rightly say there, for vegetarians and vegans, it's of even more benefit because your stores are typically rather low, whereas people who eat meat tend to get it from red meat as,
Yeah.
as standard. So we tend to have a little bit higher. So yeah, creatine definitely useful for a lot of people. Okay, so
I'm sorry, if you don't mind, can I ask you a question?
go ahead.
Yeah. So you've been dealing with so many clients who've been taking protein, or you would have been taking protein supplements and creatine for a long period of time.
Mhm.
And a lot of people in India are going to listen to this conversation. So I just want to know, for what is the maximum duration somebody can take protein supplements or creatine for?
Good
Or
question.
what is the longest time you know somebody who's been taking it and they're fine?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I've been having some form of whey protein supplement for the last, since I was 16, and I'm 30, almost 33 at this point in
Wow.
time.
Right.
In that time, I've run Ironmans. I'm a pretty lean, kind of 100 kilos of muscle mass. I play rugby, done lots of different sports. I've had no issues at all with kidneys,
Great.
liver, nothing from that standpoint. So yeah, very, very healthy. So I think the way I like to think about particularly whey protein or kind of protein supplements, if it's protein powders, is ultimately they are just another form of food. And to see them that way, if they're getting something that's, as you say, has been independently tested, is well sourced, then it's a processed food source, then that's really the way to see it versus something else. There's other food sources out there, things like Huel is a brand that's in the UK. I'm not sure if it's in India. It's
No.
like a meal replacement type drink, for example, which is more than just whey protein. It has vitamins and minerals and other things in there, which, yes, it's a highly kind of processed food source, but it's still a food source. And I think there are people who have Huel, for example, 3 meals a day and have done, I think, at this point for considerable lengths of time and have often good health effects compared to maybe what their prior diet is. But yeah, certainly whey protein, I think you could have it indefinitely. Obviously, yes, like everything, within reason. If you're just having whey protein in extreme amounts every day, you're probably going to not feel great. But you
Yeah.
can say that about a lot of food sources as well. For creatine, I'll be honest, I don't want to say a specific number just because I don't, off the top of my head, have a exact number to it. I know historically there was maybe some advice of kind of cycling on and off, for example, where you might do it for a certain number of months and then take a break from it. In reality, I would suspect that there's probably a lot of people out there who are taking creatine indefinitely and are having no other side effects, assuming they are hydrating and again taking recommended dosages as well. The way I suppose when I think about it is like there are some people who are probably having extremely large amounts of red meat and getting probably a good amount of creatine from that. And actually the maybe ill effects they were having in their health or are having in their health is probably from more excessive red meat consumption, perhaps.
Right.
So yeah, creatine, I'd have to come back and I can put some notes in the comments on that one. I'll
Yeah.
do some research and
No,
post.
that'll be good because a lot of people are scared in India to take them for a long period of time. I think so. This is really helpful for them to know that you've been taking it for a good 17 years, whey protein,
Yes. Yeah.
and without any ill effects. So if it's a good brand and if you take it in moderation, I think so it can be taken for a long period of time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's lots of other artificial products that people have every single day, and we don't even think about it. But because it's sort of this sort of sports thing that's maybe historically been lumped in with things like steroids or other supplements or
Right.
contaminated things, it's kind of become a bit of a taboo thing. It's just a good quality food source, like any other thing that we often have day to day. So, but yeah, I would very much be in support of people using it if they need to. Great if you can just get high amounts of protein if required from whole food sources. But the reality for a lot of people, particularly who are in busy jobs, etc., is you don't have time at lunchtime to suddenly sit down and have a cook from scratch whole food meal that's going to give you a large protein hit potentially. Whereas this could do that for you in 2 minutes in your shake. So it's yeah, it's definitely a good one. Okay, last couple of questions that I'm going to ask you. We've kind of covered this one already, but we'll do it one more time. Is if you could give your younger self one piece of health or fitness advice, what would it be?
I wish I would have started with the endurance training much earlier in life. And,
Mhm.
I see some medical students doing Ironmans and I feel so proud. And I just wish that I could have done it at an earlier age.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. And how about strength training as well? Have you found that been really helpful for you?
Yeah, so what happened earlier was, again, I think so it's linked with the protein intake part. Earlier, whenever I used to go to the gym, I used to become really sore and I used to get backaches because recovery was not happening properly. Now that the protein intake is there, even if I'm lifting weights on a regular basis, I'm not getting those injuries or soreness.
Yeah.
And lifting weights is definitely very important, especially, I tell all my cancer patients, my breast cancer patients, that you need to lift weights because once you hit menopause, you will lose muscle mass, right? So please lift weights, even if it's not a very heavy weight, but if the reps are adequate, you're still building muscle. So that is very important for both men and women, but women especially before they hit menopause.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that there's so many benefits to strength training. Kind of popular in the strength world coach whose kind of motto is strength is never a weakness. And I think it's definitely a good phrase to apply to everyone, really. There is no downside to you being stronger. And for some people, that might be that you're doing bodyweight workouts at home. And for someone else, that might be they're powerlifting some insane weight. But some form of strength training is only going to benefit you in life, in sport, at work, potentially as well. You might be able to stand with better posture in the operating room for 8 hours because you're a bit stronger, and you can do procedures by yourself that you might needed a colleague to help you with in the past because you're stronger. Whatever it might be, it's helpful. I have some clients who are vets, and actually for them, being stronger means they can better manage some of the animals that they work with because they're able to hold them in that case too. So yeah, lots of strength training. 100% agree. Okay, so last thing I'm just going to ask you is, where can people best find you online, and where should they follow you going forward to follow your Ironman journey?
So I have multiple social media accounts. One is Left-Handed Surgeon, where it's more of what I do professionally and what I share for students, but I do share some bit of workout tips and posts there as well. Most of them are now being shared on a new handle which I've started on Instagram called Sweat and Scalpel.
Sweat Scalpel. Brill.
So that's where I've been sharing fitness tips, and a lot of people have been asking me advice regarding protein, other supplements from the medical perspective. So that's what I've started doing on that channel.
Fantastic. And I think it's really important work. I think sometimes doctors can sometimes overlook how beneficial it is to see, for the public to see them doing it, but also them giving advice around sports supplementation and that side of things. Is because, as we both know, and I've talked about with other guests on the podcast, the amount of misinformation out there in the fitness space, supplementation products is essentially a wild west globally. And so anyone with a large following can start peddling all kinds of things, which are often of no benefit whatsoever, but are quite expensive. It's super important to have people like yourself putting out actually what is useful, what is helpful, what is safe, and it's only going to help the public. So yeah, really important work. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It's been fantastic speaking to you, Rohan, and all the links to your profiles and a couple of things we talked about today. I'll put in there about creatine as well. And I definitely think we've got room for another episode in future, potentially after your Ironman would be ideal, and then we can chat through how it went. Some other topics we've got to dive into, but thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Tom. I think it was a pleasure talking to you. So many things which I got to learn, and I'm sure it'll be a nice conversation when it comes out. A lot of people will benefit from it.
Sounds good. All right. Well, thanks so much. And yeah, I look forward to another episode. All right. Thanks, Rohan.
All right. Good night. Thank you.